Anybody run about 80? Not that I needed to go 80, but we use tubs. We use tubs to hold our fish in, and now we got dynasties and
all right, guys, we're live
catfish
with Ray
boats
Ferguson.
have come a long ways.
He's just kind of getting the crowd.
It's just been incredible.
Cranked up.
But my name's Ray Ferguson, and basically what we're here today, we're going to talk about the Santee rig. We're going to talk about when to use the Santee rig. Casey Nelms is out of Royston, Georgia. He fished Santee Cooper a lot. And if I'm sure anyone been to Santee Cooper? No one. You ever been deer hunting? Imagine dragging a bait through the woods that you're deer hunting is what Santee Cooper looks like. So very, very treacherous, trees standing out of the water. But he invented the Draggin rig that we use today. We're going to talk a little bit about Jerry Daugherty, where he has taken it to the new level, the evolution really of where we're at today. We're going to talk a little bit about the tackle, what I prefer to use. What else? When's a good time to use the Draggin rig is another thing we're going to talk about. So I guess let's get started. Draggin. Does anybody have an idea what Dragin's used for in tournament fishing or just fun fishing? Anyone have an idea? Well, what we're doing is when we go dragging, we're looking for the fish. We're lost. We don't know where the fish are. So when you see me, if I'm in a tournament, you're going to see me I'm going to have 3 rods. That's my planer board right here on top of that speaker. And on top of that, I'm going to have 3 planer boards running off to my right, have 3 planer boards running off to the left, and I'm going to have 3 rods out the back. That's when you know I'm not on fish because I don't know where they're at. Can't find them. They're scattered. And where I position my boat, I'm going to position my boat on the top of the ledge of the river channel. If I'm in a lake, I'm going to have my 3 over here fishing the bottom of the ledge. One's going to be out in the channel a little bit. One's going to be on the very bottom coming up the ledge. Try to keep it there. I'm going to have 3 on top of it, and then I'm going to have to put my other 3 as close to the bank as possible, or if there's another ledge there. So I'm searching for them. I can't find them because I've already tried anchoring. I've already tried suspending. They're not wanting to bite. This is Casey. Casey Nelms is the fellow that invented the rig, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about his story and how this all come about. And this is Melissa. So if we have any technical problems, it's on her.
I'm Casey Nelms from Royston, Georgia. My son and I came to Santee Cooper in the spring of '84. We came down to fish a catfish tournament out of Randolph's Landing. It was a state tournament at that time. And it was our first attempt to use the drift and drag technique in the lake to catch catfish. The rig was pretty primitive at that time. We don't have the type sinkers and the hooks that are used today. We were able to drift and drag. My son actually caught the first fish I know of on a true drift and drag outfit that was a 40-pound fish, and we was able to back that up with a 47 and a 40, and we placed second in the tournament, plus we had big fish using the drift and drag at that tournament in the spring of '84. That is how it all started. The rig we was using that time was a pretty basic rig. We used a 36-inch leader, and above that we had a sliding bail sinker on the line. We would let the fish hit and run back in those days. This was prior to the circle hook. We'd let them hit and run, throw it in gear and really set the hook hard. But we were using a 36-inch leader, 50-pound leader, basically 30-pound line most of the time. And that was the basic rig that we started drifting and dragging in Santee with. Using the rig back in those days, of course, we was hanging up a lot. And we was constantly breaking off and tying a lot of knots. I kept experimenting a little bit or thinking about what's hanging. Is it the hook? Is it the weight? Or what's going on? And just kind of by accident one day, I found some crappie floats in my boat, and I decided, let's put this out there between the weight and the hook and suspend the bait off the bottom. I didn't know if we was going to run the fish off or what was going to happen, but was just luck. That day the fish was biting, and we caught a lot of good fish with using the float, and the hang-up rate was reduced drastically. The next step to get the rig a little bit better, I started playing with weights, and I was in Alaska in the 86, and I actually discovered a slinky weight salmon fishing in the Kenai River, and I brought some of those home with me and started using them on the drift and drag rig in place of the bale sinker, and found out that helped that much more, and that ended up being the basic Santee Drift Rig that was used for many years. This is the basic Santee Drift Rig that I'm using today. The rig consists of a 36-inch leader, 50-pound mono. On that, we're using circle hooks at this time. Above that is a 2.5-inch crappie float. On back to our swivel where the slinky drifter is attached. The purpose of the float in this system is, of course, the weight is going to be on the bottom. The float will suspend the bait up off the bottom quite a ways, and then it's dropped back down, so you're actually drifting across the bottom with your bait suspended several inches off the bottom, which prevents a lot of hang-ups, and it's proved to be very effective for me to this day. I'm still using it today.
All right, this is his slinky rig right here. So basically what he said earlier in the program there is that he was dragging a bale sinker. He was dragging a bale sinker with a hook. That's it. He didn't have all this fancy stuff. He just had a hook. He told me he was tying losing 30 to 40 hooks a fishing trip. Why would someone do that? Why would someone tie that many hooks on? The first fish he caught was 40 pounds doing it. Then he caught a 50-pounder. That's why he was doing it. He was trying to figure it out. If you don't, this technique works so well. That was a state tournament that he was fishing. He won it the first year, Draggin. He won it the second year, Draggin. The third year, they asked him not to come back. Wasn't allowed back for 2 more years. So they stopped him from fishing because no one knew what he was doing. Obviously, he was cheating, right? That's what they all say when you get on the fish. But that's what he was doing. He was dragging. So he got a little redemption. So the third year that he was not allowed to fish, he'd give the technique to his buddy. They won it for the next 2 years. And then they asked him not to fish. So this really works. The only way it's going to work is that the only way it's going to work is time on the water. There's a lot of different techniques that you can use. Say this is his cork. This is what he was using, a styrofoam cork. Well, it's changed today to where we have the cat and shad, demon dragons. All this is a cork. It's got rattles in it. If you ask me, do I catch more fish using this or using this? I don't. It's the same hookup ratio. The only difference this has over this is durability. The durability of where if you're dragging guys, you know, you got your fish, you're reeling in, and you look back about 50 yards and your cork's out there floating where he's knocked it off the line. So now what that does for me, I have to stop, retie, put another cork on. It's only 35 cents. Well, it's probably 65 cents today, but 35 cents. This is a couple of dollars, but there's no retying. Now, am I suggesting you to go out and buy this? Who drags? Would you suggest everyone to go out and buy one of these for the first time dragging? No, because you're going to lose it. And then you're never going to drag again. You got to practice as cheap as possible. I'm 48 years old. I've been dragging bait since I was 14 years old. We used spark plugs to drag baits with because we was poor. We didn't. There was no technology, so we crimped a spark plug on a Carolina rig and took off. We caught a lot of fish that way, and it's a lot cheaper. Occasionally you get a foul plug, you got to change one, you know, if it's not biting. Y'all didn't catch that. Some of y'all did. Okay. But really, you can drag with anything. I was talking to a gentleman earlier. He said he fished a lake that was around 15 foot deep. This is about the deepest he was fishing. He had some 20-foot stuff, but it was all mud and sand. I said, man, you could drag anything. You could take that bell sinker that he had and drag that and never be hung up today. Can't do that in the Mississippi River. You can't do that in Lake Texoma. You're going to have something with a float on it to keep your bait up. People ask me, hey, what's the best rig? They're all great, different applications. You've got to figure out what works best in your body of water that you're fishing. Why do I have all of this? I got all this in my boat. I fished this year, I fished 40 weekends on a different lake this year. 40 places. My partner has fished, 50? No, it was 50. He's at 50 different lakes. We use it all every day. We start fishing on Wednesdays, and we'll fish to Saturday. We'll drag, suspend, we'll do it all. It's a lot of work. I don't want you to think, hey, I'm gonna jump out there, I'm gonna buy all this stuff, and I'm gonna catch fish, because it doesn't work that way. Do a little bit at a time, drag your 3 poles, figure it out, and go from there. The evolution of this stuff is expensive. You got your hook that costs $2. You got this. I really don't know how much this costs. Does anyone? $5 maybe? $5. And then you got a scent tube. Jerry Daugherty, what we're going to hear from next. When you're dragging baits, everybody's doing the same thing. We're all dragging. We're dragging everybody's doing the same thing. Jerry come up with this. This is a dragging tube, and I'm going to let him tell you about it. Yep.
Hey guys, with Bloodline Catfish Tackle from Greenwood, South Carolina. Here at Bloodline, we took dragging to the next level. This is what got me into it, the Bloodline Drift Rig. And what this is a dragging hose. What I did is added a scent tube. You can pop this cork off the top, and you can fill it full of scent. This end cap has a valve on it that you can open or close to allow how much you want to leak. And what this does is it leaves a scent trail as you're dragging. This is the cat and shad we make at Bloodline. This is what we come out to replace the float in some fishing situations.
All right. So basically, let's start right here. It's early morning. I'm going to look for some fish, and I'm going to drag. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send my 2 poles out the back because I'm starting fresh. So I'm going to just drop 2 poles straight over. I'm not going to cast this pole because when I cast it, it's going to do this. And it's going to be all hung up. So what I'm going to do is very gently place it over the side of the boat, drop it down. I've got 2 going out the back. So I'm walking around. I set my 2nd or 3rd pole up. They're free spooling. So by the time I get moved around, I've dropped it here at the table. It's all the way to the curtain now. I want to go further than that. But that gives me my spacing for my next 2 poles. So I drop my next 2 poles down. I know exactly how far they are apart from each other. Then I start setting my planer boards up. So then I drop my planer board over and I start running it out to my left and to my right. I do one side to the other so they don't get tangled. And eventually it takes you, if I'm by myself, I wouldn't be able to do that. I have to have a partner. And normally we fish 3 people in a boat. One person runs the trolling motor and the other two people deploy the baits. One works one side, one works the other. That's the fastest way we can get them out. So I'm setting my trolling motor. I want to point, and we're going to talk about a couple of things here. If I'm using the trolling motor to pull my baits, I'm going to be about 0.4 to 0.8. I'm setting my planer boards. They're out. I'm pulling into the wind or into the current. If I'm pulling into the current, that's going to make my planer board spread out. If I'm pulling into the wind, it's going to make my planer boards go out. I had a fellow up here earlier. He said, I'm having problems with my boards not deploying. I said, which way is the wind blowing? He's like, I don't pay attention. Got to pay attention. Everything's important when you go to Draggin. Have a good map. Have your sonar running. Make sure when you start catching fish, you pretty much have to put everything on pause and see where your baits are, know where your baits are for sure, so that you can duplicate it down the road. Because what you've done is you've run over schooling fish, and you've got them. Normally when you're dragging, you don't catch one fish. You catch several fish. For example, what was it? Me and Melissa, we was fishing one of the first tournaments. Yeah, the TRC. This first tournament, me and her was together. And I was like, I'm going to take you fishing. We're going to fish this tournament. Well, I love to anchor. I'm an anchor man. I'm going to find them. I'm going to catch them. And I'm in the Tennessee River. I'm at home. So I pull up and I said, we're going to catch these fish. There's some 50-pounders down there. We got them. So I sat there for 3 hours moving around trying to catch these fish. I done everything I could. Throw fish, fresh bait, throw small bait, threw everything I had in the book at them. They wasn't budging. So we tried that. Then we tried to suspend over the top of them. Well, that didn't work. So it's now, I done got 4 hours into these fish, and they're not biting. So I give up. What did I do? Anybody, what did I do? I drug them. I backed off of them. The fish is at that Dynasty boat. I know they're there. I can see them. I backed up over here, set my baits up. We started dragging. By the time I got to this point right here, in between, almost to the fish, I'm deployed. My baits are where they need to be. I got the right distance, the right spread. I'm fixing to catch these fish. Or she was never going to go back fishing with me again. She landed a, 50 and a 45 within minutes apart. And I sat there for 3 hours fooling with them. So that's sometimes they like it to be moving. Sometimes they like it in their face. If you ever fish the Mississippi River, sometimes they like it bumping. But I can promise you right now, there's people that run down that river and they can bump their life away and never catch one. Because it's a fish. They bite sometimes, they don't. So don't be discouraged if you don't catch a fish dragging one day. If you don't catch any fish dragging, does anybody know what the problem is? What? See me afterwards. I got something for you. That's the tick. Everything, we got these sonars, and I've got the sonars. I use Garmin. I use LiveScope. There's so much technology out there, but there's one thing that's missing. You know what it is? The bite button. You can't make them bite. If they don't want to bite it, they're not going to bite it. So, real quick, I don't know what we're doing on time. Does anyone know what this is used for? We've talked about it. It's to float the bait up off the bottom. The reason I use this is to adjust it. Had a fella said, I only use an 18-inch leader. So let's think about an 18-inch leader. If he's dragging across the bottom, how tall is the fish that you're trying to catch? My fish that I try to catch is about that tall. So I'm right there on top of him. He ain't going to bite that. Always. There's always that certain. If it's a cold front and the fish is locked down and you catch a fish and he's got mud all over his belly, you better have that baby that short. because he ain't coming off the bottom to eat it. So the lower you keep it to the bottom, the better off you are. Summertime when they're hot moving around, I like to stretch it out there. And the reason why I do this, the reason I run such a large leader is so I can adjust. So you got to imagine, I'm pulling my bait's back here flopping. But watch what happens. The faster I go, so now I'm pulling 0.6. Now it's kind of weird looking, isn't it? Now if I'm pulling 0.8, what's the fastest I ever caught a bait? Catfish pulling baits. You'll never guess this. Got $100 out there, if anybody can guess it. No, not that fast. 1.6. And what I was doing is I was moving from one spot to the other, and I just turned my trolling motor on high and got across it as fast as I could. And I looked back and I thought it done hung up on a limb or a log or something, and it was a 2-pound catfish. So, but anyway, this is what we want to talk about, is adjusting. This is very crucial. I see people do this all the time. That's not a good deal. You're taking your bait and you're putting it too far away from the fish. You gotta be able to adjust. So when I run my rods, again, we're running 3, 3, 3 out the back. My first 2 rods will be up high. Then I'll start staggering them. And I'll do it all kinds of areas. Whenever I bring that in, I know what I caught that fish on. You got rubber bands and there's stuff you can just put there to stop it wherever you want it. So that's what you're after, being adjustable. Again, your speed. How fast do we want to pull this? 0.4 to 0.6. So when you're beside your boat and you first start dragging, stick this beside your boat. The bass fishermen do it. They stick their lure over there to see what it looks like. You got to do the same thing. You got to see if this fish is going to eat this. When should you drag? A lot of people ask me. I would say when everything else fails, that you don't know. If you're new to it, if you want to have fun and experience something, you go dragging. Find you a flat with some terrain. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Terrain, ledges, drop-offs. You're going to catch that fish. You're going to catch that fish at the top of that ledge or coming off of it. Sometimes you catch him at the bottom. That's why we're dragging, because I know where my bait is. So just imagine I'm dragging. Boom, I get 2 fish on at the same time. Where were they? I know where they were at. They was on top of the ledge. So now let's focus strictly on top of the ledge. So now what I'll do is I'll turn and I'll put all my baits on the ledge. And they may change in an hour. It's fishing. Any questions? Anybody? Are y'all that bored? No questions? How much weight? Where were you fishing? No, where are you fishing? What lake? What kind of lake?
So I live up north here. It's a small local lake, 700 acres. It varies from 40 feet deep to foot all the way through.
No current? No current?
They have a spillway. We get some current when they're running water like they are right now.
Okay. Most of the time, current or no current?
Most of the time, very light current.
2 ounces. I'd start with 2 ounces, and you can go as up to, I had, if you look at, I got 3/4 on there. There's a little 3/4 on my float down there at the bottom. That's what I would use. Texoma, same. Yep. Texoma is we do real well dragging the upper part next to the trees. I don't know exactly where it's at, but that's a real good place to drag. Yep, what's the red? Yeah, the Red River, where the Red River comes in and you got all those standing timber. That's what Santee Cooper used to look like, but it was the whole entire lake. Hurricanes has knocked all the trees over. But that's, 2 ounces. You don't need much more than that. And in Texas does something different than us. Texas is always bigger and better, So when you go to Texas, they'll take this cork, and they'll set up 2 hooks, and they'll put the cork out here. So you'll have 2 hooks and the cork's at the top. So you're actually dragging 2 hooks across there, 2 foot apart. And what they're doing is they're catching that fish that's on the bottom that's not active, and they're also giving that fish on top a chance. They put the cork at the end of the versus in the middle. So they'll hang that cork out there on the end and run 2 hooks. Catch fish. They're just trying to catch fish. They figure 2 hooks is better than 1. So at least that's what most Texas people tell me. So they wear us out everywhere we go. I promise you, Texas people's got it. Just 80 pound, anything. Truly, you could probably get away with 40, 30, depending on your situation. But I'm lazy. I use 80 because I don't want to retie. A lot of the times when you use the smaller lines, you get nicks and frays, and you got to get rid of it. And this is one of the things I want to stress. Every time you put a bait in the water, this is the most important thing if you get nothing else out of this. Be prepared for a world record. Be prepared. Because it's the people like you guys that catch the world record, not me, because I'm looking for him. I'm not that lucky. It's the guys out here that are lucky. You see them. We go to a tournament. Fish Lakes, guy shows up. He don't even know where to sign up at. He comes in with an 80-pound fish. You're like, what? How did you do that? There's only one 80-pound in the lake. In the whole lake he's fish. No one's ever seen a fish that big. He catches it. So always have your stuff prepared. Check your drag. Check your line the night before. Anytime you go fishing. Because it's the worst thing in the world. As a little kid, I remember. I was in a pay lake. Because I didn't know. That's all we had. We didn't have nowhere to fish. We was in a little pay pond, and I thought I was doing something. And I had this big 20, 30-pound fish on. It looked like 100. And I had 20-pound test line, and it broke it. And I'm like, oh, the biggest fish I'd ever caught is gone. And I don't want that to happen to you guys. Because I'm telling you, anytime you drop into a lake, you don't know what you're going to catch. It's the truth. All right, real quick. People ask me about planer boards. Anybody knows what a planer board is? There they are right there. What a planer board does, and this is a unique planer board. So what a planer board does is I'm setting up. You have to clip your lines up. You set your bait. We're going to imagine again. I've already set my bait out. It's as far from here to the curtain. I needed to go twice that distance because I'm fishing 20 foot of water. So if I'm fishing 20 foot of water, I want this line to go at least 40 foot back. Bare minimum, double it. Because you may drop off into 60. So you got to be bare minimum. You set your planer boards up. The wind is very important. Having a good planer board is extremely important. This is a Parks planer board. He's right behind us. I've drug a lot of boards. You're going to pay a lot of money for these boards, but they're dependable. And I'm rough on them, and I step on them, and they get crushed, and they pop back. I can't say that for every planer board that's out there, but when you come up here and feel it, look how it's designed. If the man puts his name on it engraved, it's got to mean something because he's proud of it. You pull your boards. People ask me, this looks weird. Planer guys, what is that? What am I doing with this? I'm suspending. This setup here is set up to suspend my bait off the bottom. I'm not dragging the bottom anymore. So when you see me, I've got 3 rigs out here, or what am I doing? I may be suspending one 20 foot off the bottom. Can you catch fish 20 foot off the bottom? Yeah, all the time. Some of your bigger fish come off. They'll suspend up in the school of shad. Great tool. Great tool. But this is more for the advanced people. You got to figure out how to put them out first. Once you get them figured out, then you can experiment with more stuff. This a lot of people don't do this. This is new. I say it's new. We've been doing it for years, but people starting to find out about it. But you set your weight, same concept. Your bait's out here floating, and the fish comes along and eats it. And you ever jug fish? I know everybody's jug fish. Same thing. This is the same thing. Jug fishing. But you're using it with a boat. This will work both ways. This is what's cool about this board. I can take it off. If I tear it up, I can take it off and spin it around. Guess what? It works both ways. Yeah, yes, I do both. But this is what's so unique about this board here is I could do anything with it. I could suspend, I can drag, I could tear it up, spin this around, and say if I tore the foam off this side, I can turn around and use it this way. This is used for suspending big baits, half pound baits. It'll hold it up. The Mississippi River Monsters got second place doing this, suspending baits. 2 years ago, or maybe two or 3 years ago. Question? Okay. Any questions? Yes, it'll pop loose.
Any questions, let me know. And I'll
there's an adjustment. You can come up here later. There's an adjustment, and it just pops right out. But he's right behind. He's literally right behind us, and he can tell you everything you need to know. And like I said, they're just unbelievable. You could even switch this out if this was to break. You could switch it out and just put another clip. One of the other things people ask me all the time, they say, my board's not coming off. I really don't want my board to come off. I want my board to stay on, and I'll take it off at the boat. The chances with that is you're going to lose a big fish that way because you're up here fooling around trying to get this planer board off, and you got an 80-pound fish down there that's trying to get slack in the line, and he'll throw that hook.
Give me a little more specific.
So you got to be real careful with this, and you got to be quick with it. One of the techniques we do when the board comes up, I use a 26-foot Sea Arc Pro Guide. I've got enough room in there to square dance in. So the person that's reeling the fish in, they're at the front of the boat, and everybody set the hook on the bank. You know what I'm talking about? When you go way back here like this, that's what they do. We bring the board into the boat, and I'm walking with her or him, whoever it is, and I'm taking the board off while they're backing up. Then they reel back down to get back to where they can fight the fish. That's a little trick that'll help you, keep the fish on. Practice it before you get the fish on first. So I try to get everything off. And there's 3 clips on this. So you have a clip back here at the back, a clip in the middle to hold it, and then your clip to adjust. Another thing you want to do, notice how when I move this back and forth, you want to have slack. You want to have slack in that line there. So you don't want to keep it real tight, because if you make it tight, your planer board doesn't work as well. So always keep a little slack, because you got to understand this one down here is moving. Any questions? I'm going to ask you that question. This is the problem that I've noticed. A gentleman was here talking earlier, and we are having a major problem with hooks, not getting hookups. I don't see him, but Oh, that was you. Okay, yes, it was you. Okay, sorry. But we was talking. I personally think that some of the jigs these hooks are made off, I don't know how many millions of hooks run through those jigs, but I think when they first started running them, I've noticed the hookup ratio was bam, bam, bam. And now all of a sudden it's the same hook, same package, but 3 years later, I don't get the hookup. And I feel like there's something in the hook design itself has changed enough not to allow the hookup ratio that you used to have.
Planers has a Facebook
I don't have a
page
favorite hook
and a website
because I'm constantly
You can check
changing
out
right
Parks
now,
Planners
trying to
if you're
find a
interested in
good
those.
hook.
We
So
visited them earlier on the live
that's the best I can
stream.
give you.
So if you want to go check out,
And I've lost a
one of
lot
the
of
previous
80-pound
live
fish
streams, you can
looking at
see
them.
us talking
Hook
to Parks
come flying
Planners.
out. And I mean, got them all the way to the boat and no hook in them. Catch them. I got them in the boat where they're barely hooked. We had another situation where I switched hooks. Now my hookup has went back into their head where it gets into their eye and stuff. That's not a good hookup either to me because now I'm blinding fish. So it seems like today there's no happy median. You either barely get him or you get him too good. So, but like I said, there's things coming out every day with hooks. Same concept. You just keep changing until you find out what works. Yes, sir. When you go do that, then you're changing again. I got a Donnie Fountain. I know some of you guys probably know him. He's notorious for changing the hook. So what they're doing is they take a pair of pliers and they offset the hook, trying to get a better hookup ratio. Well, if you take a hook and drag it across your arm, that's the best hookup ratio I've ever found. So you take your line and you pull it. Notice it didn't hook up to my arm. That's not good. That's not a good hook, is it? Because it's the same concept right there. Well, sorry. One more time. That's off the shelf. Brand new hook. Is it going to catch a fish? It should. There it is. It just caught me. How many times did it take to catch it? Find your hook. You got to buy it to find it. But once you find your hook, keep it. Don't jump around like I'm jumping around right now looking for hooks. Any questions? Someone else in the back. Yes, sir. It's a circle hook. Doesn't matter though, because the circle hook's going to hook up just as well as any hook that's out there. It's just that there's something, if you look at the shank of the hook, there's something going on with the hooks today. I don't know what it is. I really don't. If I knew, I'd be a millionaire. Yes, and that does help. That does help when you snell it a different way. The way you tie your hooks. The guy asked me earlier, how your hookup was if you snailed one. So we're going to snail one.
Again, guys, if
real
you have
quick.
any questions, just let me know and I'll ask them for you.
Okay. Any other questions why I snailed this hook? The question is do I have a preference in rods? When you see me come to a tournament, I'll have 30 rods. And I'm going to have light tip rods, heavy rods, and medium. When I'm dragging my baits, it's a fine line. So if I've got a stiff rod and I'm dragging and my bait bumps into something, but pulls my pole over instantly, and then it gives a snap back. You ever seen your pole snap back? What's that do to your bait? It does the same thing. It snaps your bait around. Where's the fish? Next to the snag. So therefore, you don't want a heavy rod when you're dragging. You want to be really a light, sensitive tip to where it'll wave at you. And what I mean by that is when your rods are dragging, you don't want them to snap down. You want them to wave. As easy as possible, but you got to have enough backbone back here to fight that 80-pound fish. And most of your medium heavy rods to medium light will do that. It's all in the technique of the person. Your drag set right, your line's right, the leader's tied, your hook's going to hook up. So the lighter your rod tip, the better off you're going to be dragging, because what you're going to notice is your rod is going to start easing over and it's going to lay down. Well, where's that bait at? Still next to the snag that the fish is going to eat. Because I can't tell you how many times my rod has been like barely bowing over, and then all of a sudden, bam. Well, it stayed at the snag long enough for him to reach over there and grab it. So that's what we want. And we want it to stay in the bite zone, not jump out of it. Is that clear? Does that help? Back to the snail. He caught me. Every time. It's all in how you tie your hook. But look. You got my shirt. I want a hook that's going to hook up every time. And it's still not wanting to go. So, any other questions? You must have seen that knot tied like that. Yeah. But a snail's a good hook. Another problem with that is when you get hung up, you got to have leader. You got to have all your material ready to go. So when we go fishing, I've got a tackle box with 30 of these tied up. Always, every day. Always ready to go. If we suspend baits, I've got 30. If we're dragging, I got 30. You got to be prepared. Planer boards, I think I've got, I don't know how many planer boards, but I got a lot of them. Because the difference between me and you is I'm pulling too many. And if I break off and that planer board starts floating, it's a gift. Somebody just got them a planer board because I'm not going back after it. Huh? Oh, what's that now?
Where you go fishing at?
Y'all give Ray a round of applause. He had an excellent seminar. Thank you, Ray.
Yes, sir.
If you have any questions that you still want to ask, didn't get them in, please feel free to come up and talk with Ray. He'll be happy to answer them for you. And thank you for being here. Grab his microphones, please. Next seminar will be at 2:15 with Tim Scott, talking about big fish tendencies.